We're here at Avebury, which is a huge ceremonial complex of stone circles and earthworks here in the southwest of England. It was made in stages between about 3000 and 2000 BC, and according to the archaeologists it was a place of the dead, a place to venerate the ancestors. It is a huge earthen henge monument, inside which is a massive stone circle. Within that is actually two further stone circles. It forms part of a much bigger series of sites that would include Silbury Hill, West Kennet Long Barrow, and various other long barrows and monuments and standing stones in this area.
So I think ancient sites were created by man to harness particular types of earth energy. But in my research, what I have really noticed is if you put a standing stone like an acupuncture needle onto a particular type of energy, the stones behave in a particular way, and that is an actual fact. It could be a wall as well of a church, it could be a pillar in a church. The ancients were aware of how to harness the energy. So if we start off at a lower level, raise the dowsing rod up, put it over the central position of the stone, and that causes the dowsing rod to spin. It's just picking up a little bit of speed, and I'm trying to hold this rod as steady as I can. So that's called a vortex effect that the stone itself produces.
The stones of Avebury obviously are one of the main features, and they're made of local sarsen. Sarsen is a type of extremely hard sandstone, almost like a quartzite. Which means that they contain quartz, which means that they have energetic properties to them. Maria, you did some work here with the British engineer Rodney Hale, where he used electrical equipment to confirm your dowsing techniques. Can you tell us all about that, please?
That's right. So what Rodney and I were looking for was, dowsers had always said, my late father and other dowsers beside, that this stone has 5 above ground energy bands, and imagine a band wrapping around the stone, and 2 below ground. And you know, I used a dowsing rod to confirm the tops and bottoms of the bands, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. But I said that to Rodney. I said, can we have a go at really trying to find out what this energy is? And he came out with me and confirmed that the energy bands correlate to certain signals coming out of the stones. So by that, if you put a dowsing rod in what's called search mode, that's parallel to the ground, not too far down, that's search, and you lift it up the face of the stone, when it hits the bottom of that band, it will start to move. So that's the bottom of that band there. Then we lift it up the face of the stone, and that's the bottom of that band. And that's the top of a band. Do you see what I mean? So that's what we were measuring. We were marking them, and Rodney used a stick to get the height in meters and to see what that was doing. And he found that it was releasing a signal that he could record. So it kind of gave the band some background to that something was going on.
Do you know what type of meter he was using, or in other words, what type of frequencies was it?
I think Rodney was using a wideband radio receiver.
Right.
Maria indicated the levels where she could dowse energy, so I introduced those as mauve bands across the stone, and alongside is the graph of the amplitude of the hiss I got on my radio receiver as I raised it from ground level up to 6 feet. And as you can see, the amplitude corresponds very well with the dowsed bands of energy.
Studying the energy bands says one thing. This stone is rooted into a circular energy pattern associated with underground water. Most water diviners would tell you that. It has a term, it's called a primary halo. So this is like an acupuncture point put into that circular pattern. And master dowsers think that circular pattern has stayed consistent for thousands of years. And the energy is coming up the stone, probably because it's got a crystal lattice-like structure, and then is being aerial emitted through to an aerial beam of energy rather, that goes right over to the next stone, and that's called crosstalk in dowsing terms. So the energy is coming up the stone and then it's releasing it, and that's the signals that we were picking up on. So this stone in effect can communicate with an energy band of a linear force to that stone, to that stone, to that stone, which like I said is called crosstalk. Now one of the bands near the top seems to release a signal that in dowsing terms then goes to the next monument. So it's like creating a ley line like energy, that's a beam that's sending a signal out across the landscape. Now, with other experiments that we did as well, was we noticed that particular points of these energy bands can affect weight. So if you weighed yourself prior to touching these energy bands, you would have your normal weight. But then when you move your body and have a weight measurement touching the stone, two things will happen. You either get heavier or you get lighter. So I would say that if you got lighter, it would be one way to manipulate a stone to make it lighter for movement, for example. By touching these energy bands as well, what Rodney and I noticed was that the frequency in my body when I'm touching these energy bands was registering, and he could record that. So the energy is influencing my physical body.
An American inventor by the name of John Burke came to Avebury many years ago and began to believe there was a possibility that the very subtle electrical and magnetic currents of the earth were being enhanced by the presence of the standing stones, and he used various field meters to try and see whether there was any difference in the level of these these fields at Avebury, outside of Avebury, and he ended up looking at as many as 80 different stone circles and megalithic monuments around Britain and in other countries, and he concluded that this was indeed one of their purposes, was to enhance these natural energies of the landscape. Now, if that's the case, then what does this enhancement achieve? Well, he believed that it enhanced plant growth, the growth of perhaps medicines that were used to cure people, and this is something which has been brought up again recently by my colleague Graham Phillips in his work. But beyond that is the connection with consciousness, because quite clearly if the localized electrical and magnetic fields are being enhanced, that's going to affect the brain, which is going to induce experiences and altered states of consciousness.
So what's happening now is the energy band's going through this stone, but we need to pick it up on the other side of the stone. So what I'll do is I'll come to this side of the stone, I'm going to cross it at a right angle, and now it's telling me it's going in that direction. So now I'm going to follow it. But in dowsing, if you go wrong and I start to move away, the rod starts to tell me when you're back on the right track. So it will now, we'll just go over here, we'll get back on it again. And now we're heading for this stone here. I'm going to go wrong deliberately, and my rod's going to say, no, you've got to go back. That's where it is. So it's heading towards that stone and then the next stone besides.
The placing of stones in a landscape like this will affect the very subtle electrical and magnetic currents that flow through the earth naturally. And this will enhance everything from plant growth to healing, to achieving altered states of consciousness, and maybe even portaling on a consciousness level, but also perhaps even on a physical level as well. Avebury obviously is somewhere that's very much associated with UFO activity and the appearance of mysterious lights. There are a large number of cases going back all the way to the 17th century, and in the more modern era the area has become connected with crop circles, and you get a large amount of tourists, visitors to the area, particularly during the summer months, and they have reported a large number of encounters with mysterious light forms, which have involved time-lapse experiences, what appears to be communication with the intelligences, the beings connect with it. The antiquarian John Aubrey talks about the mysterious lights of the Wiltshire Downs, but beyond that we know that the prehistoric sites of the area are connected with lights at least from the 18th century. For instance, there is an account of the local people of Avebury watching a mysterious light appear repeatedly over one of the round burrows behind me to the right, and the local people began to believe that there must be some kind of treasure there, because these were the lights of the fairies, the fairy folk of the area, and that maybe they were guarding something. This got to be heard by the local gentry, a local lord, and he actually recorded this account, which is why we know it today. And we certainly know that other types of mysterious events have occurred at Avebury during the 19th century right the way through to the modern day. We can say that Avebury and the surrounding area is a portal location. It is a place to make contact with these interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings. We're in the centre of one of the inner circles at Avebury, one of the most impressive megalithic sites in the world. And the question is, what went on here in the past? Well, we know that the location is important in itself. It's built on chalk, beneath that is aquifers, water tables, and that water would have seeped up into the chalk, and that creates electricity. Electricity releases electrons into the air, and this creates the environment that can affect human bodily systems, it can affect the brain, and it can create the idea of being able to be transported from this world into the next via portals. One of the contents of the chalk in this area of the Wiltshire Downs is flint, and flint is something that is used to make stone tools, has been since the prehistoric age, but beyond that it is almost pure quartz in content. And the reason why that is significant is that quartz is one of the components that creates what we call piezoelectricity, and piezoelectricity is one of the contributors for the release of electrons within the rock beneath our feet.
Most sacred megalithic sites in Wiltshire and around the world are placed above aquifers. The aquifers flowing through the porous chalk creates triboelectricity, and the quartz-bearing flint creates piezoelectricity. So it appears that the ancients chose these spots precisely because of how energetically powerful they are.
The association of earth energies with ancient sites, whether that's a pyramid of ancient Egypt or a stone circle here in the British Isles, they all seem to have the same earth energies that prevail there. For example, you get a normal rainfall aquifer is often associated with ancient sites. You have that much deeper water born within the earth making a geospiral pattern, and then you have earth energies and lays and grids. So you always have a kind of lot of things going on at any one site. Here at Avebury we have the Mary and Michael currents that entwine the St. Michael ley line, but some of those energies go to Mount Shasta, for example. This is the St. Michael ley, or St. Michael ley line. It says here it starts at Michael's Mount, but actually starts at Carnarvon. And Avebury, which is here, is at the centre of the actual ley. According to John Michel, it faces the direction of the Beltane, the May Day sunrise, and the Samhain, the Halloween sunset. But in the 1980s, what Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst discovered was two currents entwining the ley. One was male and one was female. Every 10 kilometres or so on the female earth current, they found a church dedicated to Mary Magdalene or the Virgin Mary, so they called that current Mary. And on the Michael current, they found numerous churches called St. Michael or St. George, and they chose to call it St. Michael after the St. Michael ley line. So where we are now, we're at the entrance stones to the southern inner circle. These are called the southern portal stones. They're massive. That's the devil's chair, and that's its partner. These stones are marking the entrance of the Mary and Michael currents as they head towards the centre of the southern inner circle. Mary comes in from this side, so I'm going to douse Mary now. So she's coming in from Wading Hill over there. I've got a reaction here, so I put my rod back into search. And I've got reaction here. She's co-joined with Michael now. So the two currents are one. So this is Mary. Now let's find Michael. We're going to find the trailing edge of Michael. That's about here. So Michael is this side and Mary is that. And the middle of the currents is about here. And both these currents are flowing harmoniously together towards the obelisk stone, which is a central feature of the southern inner circle, and then they flow to the central feature of the northern inner circle, the cove stones, and that's where they depart company. Mary goes off to the right and Michael goes off to the left, and nowhere else are they so powerful as at Avebury Henge itself, that contains the world's largest stone circle. So that stone over there is got some Mary energy current to it because it's slightly aligned upon it, but the real power place is at the obelisk. Is a marker stone that Alexander Keeler put up when he reconstructed this sector, because it's believed by some that it was smashed up in around 1724. William Stukely drew it recumbent, and apparently it could be in the chapel and the wall over there, but it still marks the central position of the 7-coiled geospiral that it's set above. A geospiral is the harmonic surface pattern of very, very deep water generated within the earth, completely independent of rainfall, and it makes a spiral pattern that a dowser that is competent in water divining can easily find with some dowsing rods. He just makes the rod twitch about 7 times because the coils are normally 7 in number. But imagine it this way, that deep lake beyond deep in the ground is generating a spiral pattern this way and inside the earth that way. So it's like 2 spirals creating a vortex of energy, and these are known as like water vortex energy, and it's quite powerful because people really do feel this. So what it is, it's a lake literally beneath the ground, far, far deeper than a normal rainfall aquifer. So if you imagine around here there's a big spiral, then this is marking its center, and I'm going to douse that now. So I'm going to hit the first geospiral energy band, and we've got a reaction there. Put it back into search. There's the second coil there, third coil, fourth coil, fifth coil, sixth coil, and the 7th. So that's the size of the geospiral energy pattern that marks all the way around. So what's going on in terms of energy? We have this stone circle here set on a circular energy pattern. We have a geospiral here that's very powerful above what's called the obelisk stone. Then you have the Michael current coming in, flowing down the avenue like this, and it really does bend far more than what William Stukely's drawn. It comes in here this way. Then from Silbury Hill you have the Mary current coursing across the land and coming down Wading Hill and co-joins Michael here. And in the 1940s it was seen that this part was definitely an earthen avenue, and recent LiDAR seems to confirm that. So that flows in. Now the two currents unite and they flow through the centre of the stone circle. And then Mary flows off in that direction and Michael goes off in that direction. They depart company at the cove stones. So they've co-joined, they flow as one, and then they depart. William Stukeley said this was called Fox Covert, where the Beckhampton Avenue flows through. Hamish and my late father said they didn't think that's where the avenue was. It was at a place called Knoll Down. And at Knoll Down you have spiral energies like this. And one is male and one is female, and they give birth to a very powerful current called the Beckhampton Serpent that flows through like this and then comes through to the southern circle and targets a particular stone. So that's how the avenues are set. Now this is Green Street here. And you have what's called a track line that's set in the width of that avenue. If indeed it was an avenue, it's certainly marked by an earth current. Now a track line consists of numerous lines, 6 in total, that flows with quite strong earth energy. Cattle tend to be attracted to them, and animals will follow a track line quite perfectly. That's coming in at that direction. Now in this direction here you have another earth current, unnamed, not like Mary and Michael, that sets that avenue there. But here, because this is a track line, it's said to really invigorate the physical body. Ridgeways follow them, for example, and you always get a track line on an old road, and that gives you energy. So that's going to be quite an energetic way of coming into the monument. And whereas where Mary comes into the monument, that's going to be more calming, and Michael is said to be energizing as well. These ones here are affected by the moon and the sun here as well. And this is both male and female, so it's affected by the sun and the moon. And this is a female earth current which will be influenced by the moon.